Most people believe being unforgettable is about being extraordinary, but they never realize the opposite is closer to true. The people who occupy your mind the longest are rarely the ones who gave you the most. They are the ones who gave you the least amount necessary to keep a question open. The most dangerous thing about this mechanism is that it does not look like a mechanism at all. It looks like chemistry. It looks like fate. It looks like the two of you simply had something rare. What it actually is, in almost every case, is architecture, a pattern of attention and absence that the human mind is built to chase, whether or not anyone ever intended to build it. Picture the version of a relationship that looks, on paper, like it should be the most secure one. Every text answered within minutes, every feeling disclosed the moment it arises, every plan confirmed instantly, every silence filled before it can stretch into anything uncomfortable. From the outside, this looks like devotion. Most people believe this kind of consistency is what keeps a person attached to you. But beneath the surface, the mind does not process total availability as a bond. It processes it as a solved problem. Once something is fully known, fully accessible, and fully predictable, the part of the brain responsible for ongoing attention quietly closes the file and moves on to whatever remains unresolved elsewhere. The uncomfortable truth is that the effort spent trying to be constantly present is very often the exact effort that guarantees a person becomes easy to stop thinking about. The consequence of this is brutal and rarely recognized in the moment. The person working hardest to be loved through total availability is, without realizing it, training the other person's mind to file them away as complete. Devotion, offered without restraint, does not deepen attachment, it resolves it. Emotions are signals, but availability is data, and the mind stops searching once the data set is full. What this means in practice is simple, even if it runs against every instinct. Let a message sit before it is answered, not for effect, but because something else in your life legitimately came first. Let a feeling stay unspoken until it has actually settled, rather than narrating it in real time. The goal is not to withhold as performance. It is to stop handing over every piece of information the instant it exists, so there is still something left for the other mind to wonder about. But this is only the first layer. The deeper mechanism appears once you understand what the mind does with things it cannot fully resolve. There is a specific kind of memory that outlives almost everything else, not the conversation that ended cleanly, but the one that got cut off mid-sentence. Not the person who explained themselves fully, but the one who left, abruptly, without explanation, and never circled back. Most people believe they remember the good moments. What they actually remember, with disproportionate intensity, are the incomplete ones. In the early 20th century, a psychologist named Bluma Zygarnik noticed something strange while watching waiters in a Vienna cafe. The waiters could recall, in perfect detail, every item from an order that had not yet been paid. The moment the bill was settled, the details evaporated from memory almost instantly. An open account stayed vivid. A closed one disappeared. What most people fail to realize is that human relationships run on the exact same operating system. A conversation that resolves cleanly gets filed and forgotten. A conversation that ends mid-thread. A person who pulls back right when things were becoming clear. A question that is never quite answered. These do not fade. They stay open, running quietly in the background, and the mind keeps returning to them uninvited, searching for a resolution it was never given. The dark psychological insight here is uncomfortable. The people you cannot stop thinking about were rarely the ones who understood you best. They were often the ones who understood you the least completely and left just enough missing that your own mind has spent months, sometimes years, filling in the rest. Human memory is not a photograph. It is an unfinished sentence, and the mind cannot stop trying to finish it. What this means in practice is that closure is not owed to every conversation. Leave a thought genuinely incomplete sometimes. End an exchange one beat before it feels fully resolved, rather than tying it off with reassurance. Not by cutting people off, but by resisting the urge to explain everything to its natural conclusion every single time. An unfinished sentence left standing does more work in someone's memory than a fully closed one ever will. But an unfinished sentence is not enough on its own. The mechanism only becomes powerful once it is combined with something far more dangerous than mystery. There is a version of this that people mistake for coldness, and it is worth separating the two immediately because they are not the same thing. Coldness is simply a different, opposite form of certainty. A person who is reliably distant is exactly as easy for the mind to resolve as a person who is reliably present. Certainty, in either direction, closes the loop. What actually captures a mind for the long term is neither warmth nor coldness held constant. It is oscillation, genuine engagement followed by genuine, unexplained withdrawal. On no fixed schedule the other party can predict or control. In the middle of the last century, researchers studying reward and behavior discovered something that has quietly explained more about human relationships than it ever explained about the laboratory animals it was tested on. A reward delivered every single time a behavior occurs produces steady, forgettable responding, and it stops the moment the reward stops. A reward delivered unpredictably produces something else entirely, behavior that becomes almost compulsive, resistant to stopping, chased far beyond what the size of the reward would ever justify on its own. This is the mechanism underneath every slot machine ever built, and it is also, uncomfortably, the mechanism underneath the person whose silence you found yourself checking your phone for. Predictable affection is pleasant to receive. It is unpredictable affection the nervous system cannot walk away from. The person doing the withdrawing rarely thinks of it as strategy. Often it is not strategy at all. It is simply someone with a full, self-contained life that does not bend entirely around another person's presence. But the effect on the other party's mind is identical either way. What this means in practice is that consistency, applied everywhere, works against you. Do not schedule your warmth on a timetable the other person can predict. Show up fully engaged one day and let the next day belong entirely to something else, not as punishment, but as the honest result of a life that has other places to be. Unpredictability that comes from a real, full schedule reads as depth. Unpredictability that is manufactured on a countdown reads, eventually, as exactly what it is. But unpredictability alone can look like chaos if it isn't paired with the next mechanism, the one that determines whether someone finds you compelling or simply confusing. People talk about mysterious people as though mystery were a trait some individuals simply possess, like height or humor. It is not. Mystery is not something inside a person. It is a deliberate absence of information, and the absence is what does the work, not anything actually hidden behind it. Consider two people at the same social gathering. One answers every question fully, offers a complete account of their week, their opinions, their history, before anyone has to ask twice. The other answers briefly, redirects, reveals a detail, and then moves on before it can be fully explored. Most people in the room will walk away remembering almost nothing concrete about the second person. And yet, days later, it is the second person they will find themselves thinking about. The hidden mechanism is this: when information is withheld, the listener's own mind does not simply wait patiently for more. It begins constructing the missing pieces on its own, using its own imagination, its own projections, its own unmet desires. And people do not attach to information they were handed. They attach to conclusions they arrived at themselves. A partially withheld person becomes, unintentionally, a mirror, and everyone is far more captivated by their own reflection than they realize. The uncomfortable truth is that being fully understood by someone is not what makes you unforgettable to them. Being fully understood closes the investigation. It is remaining slightly, permanently uninvestigated that keeps the case open. What this means in practice is that not every question deserves a complete answer on first ask. Give one true detail instead of 5. Let a story trail off before its ending, and let it stay there, rather than returning later to tie up every loose end. The other person's own imagination will do more to make you compelling than any additional fact you could hand them ever would. But a gap in information means very little if a person has nothing real underneath it. This is where the mechanism either becomes powerful or collapses into something far weaker and far easier to see through. Here is the layer almost everyone gets wrong the moment they try to apply any of this deliberately. There is a razor-thin, critical difference between a person who is genuinely self-contained and a person who is performing self-containment while secretly starving for the other person's return. And other people can feel the difference almost instantly, even when they cannot name what tipped them off. Wanting someone is compatible with wholeness. A person can want another person's presence and still be entirely intact without it. Needing someone is not compatible with wholeness. It signals, unmistakably, that the balance of power in the exchange has already been surrendered. The person who withholds attention while secretly checking, constantly, for signs that it worked, is not practicing mystery. They are practicing anxiety with a costume on, and the costume rarely survives close contact. What most people fail to realize is that the entire mechanism described in this video only functions from a position of genuine self-sufficiency. The absence has to be real. The full life on the other side of the withdrawal has to actually exist, not be manufactured for effect, because a performed absence collapses the instant it is tested, and an audience for manipulation, however unconscious, can usually feel when something is being performed for them rather than simply lived. This is the darkest insight in the entire investigation. The people who become unforgettable without ever trying are rarely running a strategy at all. They have simply built a life complete enough that they were never desperate for anyone to stay inside it. And paradoxically, that completeness is the single most irresistible quality a human mind can encounter, because it cannot be faked convincingly for long, and everyone, somewhere beneath conscious awareness, knows it. What this means in practice is the least glamorous instruction in this entire investigation, and the most necessary one. Build the life first. Fill your own time so completely that any withdrawal you practice is simply true, not staged. Every technique described up to this point collapses the moment it is performed by someone with nothing else going on, because a full inbox and an empty life is not mystery. It is loneliness wearing mystery's clothing, and it is recognized as such almost immediately. But there is one more layer beneath all of this, and it is the one almost nobody wants to look at directly. None of what has been described here was invented for manipulation, and none of it requires bad intentions to operate. It describes how attention, memory, and reward already function inside every human mind, whether or not anyone studies it. Some people build this pattern by accident, simply by living fully, and leave behind a trail of people who cannot explain, years later, why they still think about them. Others study the mechanism and attempt to operate it deliberately, and the difference between the two, more often than people expect, is visible to the person on the receiving end. The uncomfortable truth this entire investigation has been circling is not a technique. It is a mirror. The people who occupy your mind longest are not doing something to you. They are revealing something about how your own attention works, what it resolves quickly, what it cannot let go of, what kind of incompleteness your particular mind has always been most vulnerable to. Understanding the mechanism does not hand you control over another person. It hands you a far more uncomfortable kind of control, the ability to finally see why you, specifically, could never stop thinking about the ones who gave you the least. The greatest insight into human behavior is not learning how to become unforgettable to someone else. It is understanding why your own mind was never actually chasing the person at all. It was chasing the part of the story that was never finished, and it will keep chasing it in one form or another until it finally learns how to close a loop on its own.